At 3 a.m., Junri's fingers tightened around his phone as he stared at the hidden camera feed. Something wasn't right. His maid, Alicia, the quiet Kenyan woman he'd hired 6 months ago, was reading medical charts in his triplets' room, moving between cribs with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. Because she had. As a pediatric specialist, top of her class in Nairobi. His sickest son, Junesio, the same baby doctors said wouldn't survive, was laughing in her arms. Actually laughing. While Junri's wife slept off another bottle in the master bedroom, surrounded by empty promises. By sunrise, Junri had her file. Medical degree. Forced into Maid work by her brother's leukemia bills. She'd been saving his son's lives in a uniform meant to make her invisible. And he'd been paying her minimum wage to scrub floors. This is the story of what happened next, how hidden camera footage changed a mafia boss forever, how a desperate woman's lie became the truth that saved everyone, and how love became the most dangerous weapon in Seoul's underworld. Stay with me on this because by the time Junri's enemies discovered Alicia's secret, he had 48 hours to choose between his empire and the woman who taught him that power means nothing without someone worth protecting. This is how a Korean mafia boss learned that the strongest thing you can do is fall in love with someone brave enough to save you. Let's begin. Junri's fingers tightened around his phone as he stared at the screen, the hidden camera feed showing something he never expected to see at 3 in the morning. His triplets' room glowed soft under the nightlight, and there she was, Alicia, the Kenyan maid he'd hired 6 months ago, sitting cross-legged on the floor between all 3 cribs, singing. Not just singing, though. She was reading medical charts he didn't even know she could understand, checking temperatures with the back of her hand, adjusting the humidifiers he'd bought after the doctors said the boys needed moisture in the air. His wife hygiene was supposed to be doing this, but the camera in the master bedroom showed her passed out again, empty bottles scattered around the bed like broken promises. "Boss, we need your answer about the shipment," his second-in-command whispered from across the office, but Junri held up one finger, unable to look away from the screen. Alicia was standing now, lifting Junesio, the smallest, the sickest of the 3, against her shoulder, swaying in that gentle rhythm mothers knew instinctively. The boy had been crying for weeks, his immune system so weak the doctors weren't sure he'd see his first birthday. But right now, in Alicia's arms, he looked peaceful, maybe even comfortable. "The herbs I brought from home should help," Alicia whispered to the baby, her accent thick but her Korean surprisingly clear. "My grandmother used them for babies who couldn't breathe right. I know your father probably wouldn't approve, but you need to get better, little one." Something shifted in Junri's chest, something he thought had died years ago when he took over his father's organization. He watched her move to check on Daeyoung and Taemin, the other 2 boys, making sure their breathing was steady, tucking blankets that had come loose. She'd been doing this every night, he realized. Every single night while he worked, and his wife drank herself unconscious. "Cancel tomorrow's meetings," Junri said suddenly, standing up so fast his chair rolled backward. "All of them." "But boss," I said, "cancel them." He grabbed his jacket, still watching the feed as Alicia settled back down on the floor, pulling out a small notebook where she'd been tracking everything. Feeding times, temperature changes, medication schedules, even the times each baby smiled or seemed more alert. And find out everything about Alicia Omondi. Everything. By sunrise, Junri had a file on his desk that made his jaw tighten. Medical degree from University of Nairobi, top of her class. Pediatric specialization. She'd been working at Kenyatta National Hospital until her younger brother got sick, leukemia, and the treatment costs had buried her family in debt. The kind of debt that made people desperate, that made talented doctors take jobs as maids in foreign countries just to send money home. Why didn't she mention any of this when we hired her? Junri asked his head of security, Min-soo, who shrugged. The agency probably told her to keep quiet. Families like yours want maids, not people who might have opinions about how you raise your kids, Min-soo said carefully. She needed the job, probably figured honesty would get her ejected. Junri thought about his wife, about how hygiene had picked Alicia specifically because she'd seemed quiet, unlikely to cause problems or judge. The irony tasted bitter on his tongue. They'd hired the one person who could actually save their sons, then shoved her in a maid's uniform and told her to scrub floors. I want her moved to the day shift, Junri said, making a decision that would change everything. And I want her working directly with the boys as their nurse, not their maid. Your wife won't like that. My wife isn't taking care of them anyway. That afternoon, Junri waited in the nursery, watching through the doorway as Alicia arrived for what she thought was her regular shift. She looked exhausted, probably because she'd been up all night with the triplets, but her smile was genuine when she saw the boys awake and alert. "Good morning, little warriors," she murmured, going to Junri first like she always did. The baby reached for her immediately, and Junri watched something impossible happen. Junri laughed. Actually laughed, this child who'd barely made sounds beyond crying for months. "He knows you," Junri said from the doorway, and Alicia spun around so fast she nearly dropped the baby. Her eyes went wide, probably terrified she'd been caught doing something beyond her job description. "Mr. Kong. I was just teaching yourself Korean pediatric medicine while working 16-hour days?" Junri stepped into the room, hands in his pockets, trying to look less intimidating than he knew he was. "Monitoring my son's health better than their own mother? Using traditional remedies that actually seemed to be working?" Alicia's face went carefully blank, and he recognized that look, the same one his people wore when they thought they were about to be punished. "I'm sorry, I overstepped. I just couldn't watch them suffer when I knew I could help." "You're fired," Junri said, and watched her face crumble before he continued, "as a maid. I'm hiring you as my son's private nurse, with a salary that matches your actual qualifications." The notebook she'd been holding slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. "What?" "I've been watching the camera feeds," Junri admitted, picking up the notebook and flipping through her meticulous notes. "You've been doing more for my boys in 6 months than anyone else has since they were born, including me. So either you take the position and help me figure out how to actually keep them alive, or you can leave and I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if they would have survived with you here." That's not fair," Alicia whispered, but her hands were already reaching for Junri again, already checking his breathing like it was instinct. "Nothing about this situation is fair," Junri agreed. "But my sons need you, and I'm done pretending otherwise. So what's it going to be?" Alicia looked down at Junri, at Dae-young and Taemin, who were both watching her with those wide, curious eyes babies had. Then she looked back at Junri, and he saw the exact moment she made her choice. "I need to send money home to Kenya for my brother's treatment. And I need Sundays off to video call my family. And I need you to actually listen when I tell you what these boys need, even if it contradicts what your fancy doctors say." "Done, done, and done." Junri held out his hand, very aware he was making a deal that went far beyond employment. "Do we have an agreement, Dr. Omondi?" Her hand was smaller than his. Calloused from months of scrubbing floors she was overqualified to clean. But her grip was firm when she shook. "We have an agreement, but I'm not a doctor anymore. Just call me Alicia." "Then you can call me Junri when we're alone with the boys," he said, surprising himself. He never let anyone call him by his first name. It implied equality, friendship, things that got people killed in his world. They should hear adults being human around them, probably. Something shifted in Alicia's expression. Surprise, maybe relief. "All right then, Junri. Let's start with the medication schedule because whoever prescribed this antibiotic clearly didn't account for Junri's weight properly, and honestly, it's amazing he hasn't had worse side effects." And just like that, they fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to partnership. Alicia talked, Junri listened, and for the first time since his sons were born, he felt like maybe they had a chance. 3 weeks later, Junri smiled at him. Actually smiled, not the grimace that might be gas expression he'd given before, but a real smile that made Junri's chest tighten in ways he didn't have words for. "See? I told you the respiratory treatments would help," Alicia said from across the nursery, not even looking up from where she was changing Taemin's diaper. "He's breathing easier, which means he's feeling better, which means he can actually respond to stimuli like his father's ridiculous faces." My faces aren't ridiculous, Junri argued, but he was grinning like an idiot and didn't care. They're engaging. They're ridiculous. Alicia finished with Taemin and moved to wash her hands, her routine so efficient now it was like watching a dance. But the boys love them, so keep it up. Junri wanted to say something. Thank you, maybe, or I don't know what we'd do without you. But the door burst open before he could. Hygiene stood there, still in yesterday's clothes, makeup smeared, looking between him and Alicia with narrowed eyes. Why is the maid still here? His wife demanded, her voice sharp. I told you to fire her last week. She's too comfortable around you, too. Alicia is the boy's nurse now. Junri interrupted, his voice flat. And she's the reason Jun SEO is actually gaining weight instead of losing it, so unless you have a medical degree, I don't know about. I'm their mother. Then act like it. The words came out harsher than he'd intended, and he watched Hygiene flinch. Alicia had gone very still by the sink, probably trying to decide if she should leave. When's the last time you held one of them while you were sober? When's the last time you even checked if they were breathing? Hygiene's face went red, then white. How dare you? I gave birth to them. I almost died. And Alicia is keeping them alive now. Junri moved between his wife and the cribs instinctively, the same way he'd position himself between threats and assets during business deals. So she stays, and if you have a problem with that, you can take it up with me in private, not in front of the boys. For a moment, he thought Hygiene might actually fight him on this. But then she looked at Alicia, really looked at her, and something ugly crossed her face. Of course, the great calm Junri, savior of the poor foreign girl. Does it make you feel powerful, having her so grateful she'll do anything you ask? Get out, Junri said quietly, and anyone who knew him would have recognized the danger in that tone. Get out before you say something that can't be taken back. Hygiene left, slamming the door hard enough to make Dae-young start crying. Alicia moved immediately, scooping him up and murmuring soothing nonsense in Swahili, mixed with Korean. Junri watched her, watched how naturally she comforted his son, and felt something crack in his chest. I'm sorry, he said after a long moment. You shouldn't have to deal with. It's fine. Alicia's voice was carefully neutral. I've dealt with worse, and honestly, I expected this. Wealthy wives usually don't like when the help becomes indispensable. You're not the help. Junri moved closer, reaching out to stroke Dae-young's soft hair. His fingers accidentally brushed Alicia's, and they both froze. You're saving my son's lives. That makes you family, as far as I'm concerned. Alicia looked up at him, and for the first time since they'd met, he saw past the professional mask she wore. Saw the loneliness, the exhaustion, the fierce determination that had brought her across the world for her brother. Saw someone who understood sacrifice in ways most people never would. Family, she repeated softly, like she was testing the word. Then Dae-young grabbed her finger, and she smiled. All right then, family. But that means you need to actually spend time with them, not just observe from doorways. They need their father, not just their nurse. I don't know how to. Neither did I at first, Alicia interrupted gently. But you learn, and I'll teach you if you want. So he learned. Over the next 2 months, Junri rearranged his entire life around 3 tiny humans who needed him in ways his organization never had. He learned how to test bottle temperature, how to burp babies without making them spit up everywhere, how to read their different cries and know who needed what. And he learned about Alicia, how she hummed old Kenyan songs when she thought no one was listening, how she video called her brother every Sunday and lied about how great Seoul was so he wouldn't worry, how she still read medical journals late at night like some people read novels. Your brother's name is Jabari, right? Junri asked one evening, watching her prepare the boy's medication. How's his treatment going? Alicia's hands stuttered on the medicine dropper. How did you? I told you I'd find out everything about you. He kept his voice gentle, non-threatening. The leukemia treatments, are they working? Slowly. Alicia's voice was barely above a whisper. The hospital says he needs a bone marrow transplant eventually, but the cost? I'm sending everything I can, but it's not enough, it's never. What if I paid for it? The words were out before Junri could think them through. The transplant, the aftercare, everything. What if I just handled it? Alicia spun around, eyes wide. You can't. That would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. I spend more than that on shipments I'll never see, Junri said honestly. Money's not the issue, but your brother is 11 years old and dying, and you're here taking care of my sons when you should be home with him. Let me fix this, probably the only decent thing I'll do all year. Why? Alicia's voice cracked. Why would you do that for people you've never met? Junri looked at the triplets, all three sleeping peacefully in their cribs because of this woman's care. Because you saved my sons without asking for anything in return, seems fair I do the same for yours. Alicia didn't cry, at least not in front of him, but her hands were shaking when she went back to measuring medicine. I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem. Then don't say anything. Junri moved to stand beside her, close enough to steady her elbow when the dropper almost slipped. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep being exactly who you are. Their eyes met, and something passed between them that felt dangerous and inevitable all at once. But then Junso made a noise, and the moment broke, and they both went back to pretending they were just employer and employee instead of whatever they were actually becoming. 2 weeks later, Junri came home to find his wife screaming at Alicia in the nursery, her words slurred and vicious. You think you're so special? Think you can replace me with your fake smiles and your medical knowledge? Mrs. Kong, please, you're scaring the babies. Alicia was backing up, holding Taemin protectively against her chest while the other two wailed in their cribs. I'm their mother. Hyejin shrieked, and Junri saw her hand rise, saw the intention in her eyes, and moved faster than he'd moved in years. He caught his wife's wrist mid-swing, his grip gentle but absolutely firm. Hyejin, you need to sleep this off. Don't touch me. Don't you dare. But she was already stumbling, and Junri caught her before she fell, lifting her easily despite her struggles. Min-soo, he called, and his head of security appeared immediately. Take Mrs. Kong to the guest room, and make sure she stays there until she's sober. He didn't watch them leave. Instead, he went straight to Alicia, who was still holding Taemin like a shield, her whole body trembling. Are you hurt? I'm fine, but the boys. The boys are fine because you protected them. Junri reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently touched her shoulder. Alicia, I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have handled things with hygiene before it got to this point. It's not your fault your wife hates me, Alicia interrupted, her voice steadier now. I'm a reminder that she's failing at the one thing society tells her she should be good at, being a mother. That's not something you can fix. But Junri wanted to fix it anyway, wanted to fix everything that put that haunted look in Alicia's eyes. Instead, he just helped her calm the triplets, staying up with her until all three boys were sleeping peacefully again. You should go rest, Alicia said around midnight, stifling a yawn. I can handle the night shift. I'm staying. Junri settled into the rocking chair he'd bought specifically for these long nights. You shouldn't be alone after that. Alicia looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She curled up on the small sofa they'd added to the nursery, pulling a blanket over herself. Just for a few hours. Wake me if they need anything. She was asleep in minutes, and Junri watched her in the dim, night-light glow. Watched her and wondered when exactly he'd started thinking about her as more than just his son's nurse, when she'd become the person he looked forward to seeing every morning, the voice he wanted to hear at the end of every terrible day. He knew it was wrong. He was married. She was his employee. His sons needed her too much for him to complicate things with feelings. But watching her sleep, seeing the peace on her face that was never there when she was awake and worried, Junri admitted the truth to himself. He was falling in love with Alicia Amandi, and he had absolutely no idea what to do about it. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Min-soo appeared during breakfast, or what passed for breakfast when you were feeding 3 babies, looking grim. Boss, we have a problem. Can it wait? Junri was trying to convince Juneseo to take his bottle, and the baby was being particularly stubborn. It's about the Choi family. Min-soo glanced at Alicia, clearly uncomfortable. Maybe we should talk in private. Whatever you need to say it here. Junri had stopped keeping secrets from Alicia weeks ago, figuring anyone trusted with his son's lives could be trusted with his business. She knows what I do, probably more than my wife does at this point. Min-soo sighed. Choi Sung-ho is making moves against you, claims you've been distracted lately, that you're getting soft. He's talking to the other families, trying to build a coalition. Let me guess, he wants my territory. Junri finally got Jun Seo to latch onto the bottle, but his mind was already racing through possibilities and countermoves. What's his timeline? 2 weeks, maybe less. He's planning something big for the trade summit, probably going to try forcing a vote about leadership. Then we'll be ready. Junri handed Jun Seo to Alicia, who took him automatically, her face carefully neutral. Set up a meeting with our allies. I want to know exactly where everyone stands before Sung-ho makes his move. After Min-soo left, Alicia was quiet for a long time. Finally, while changing Dae-young's diaper, she spoke. Are you in danger? Probably, but that's nothing new. Junri tried to sound casual, but he saw her hands tighten on the baby. This is just politics, the kind that happens in every organization. Nothing you need to worry about. Of course I worry. Alicia snapped, and there was real anger in her voice now. You think I can just pretend you're a normal businessman when men with guns follow you everywhere? When you have meetings about people trying to what exactly? Kill you? Take your power? Both, usually. Junri moved closer, reaching out to steady her trembling hands. Alicia, I've been doing this since I was 17. I know how to handle threats from people like Choi Sung-ho. But what about your sons? Alicia's voice broke. What happens to Jun Seo, Dae-young, and Taemin if something happens to you? Who protects them then? You would. Junri said simply, and he meant it with everything in him. That's why I'm telling you all this, because if something does happen to me, you're the only person I trust to keep them safe. Not my wife, not my organization, you. Alicia looked up at him, tears streaming down her face now, and Junri did something he'd sworn he wouldn't do. He reached out and pulled her close, not quite a hug, but close enough that she could lean against him if she needed to. And she did, just for a moment, her forehead resting against his shoulder while she tried to stop crying. I hate this, she whispered. I hate that you're in danger. Hate that those boys might grow up without their father because of some stupid power struggle. Then help me make sure that doesn't happen. Junri pulled back just enough to look at her face. Help me figure out how to protect them, how to protect you, how to maybe build something better than what my father left me. I don't know anything about Mafia politics. But you know about people, about reading situations and adapting. Junri wiped a tear from her cheek without thinking. That's more valuable than you know, especially now. So Alicia started sitting in on his strategy meetings, offering perspectives no one else thought to consider. She noticed things, body language, inconsistencies in stories, patterns in behavior. Within a week, she'd identified 2 people in his organization who were probably working for Choi Sung-ho, feeding him information. How did you see that? Min-soo asked, impressed despite himself. We've had people investigating for months. They move differently around Junri now, Alicia explained, pointing to surveillance footage. See? 3 months ago, they stood close, relaxed. Now they keep distance, their shoulders are tense. They're afraid of being caught, probably. Junri watched her work, watched her mind analyze and process, and fell a little deeper in love. Which was a problem, because hygiene was escalating her drinking, becoming more erratic and dangerous. She tried to fire Alicia twice more, had screamed at the boys when they cried, had even threatened to take them and leave. Let her go, Min-soo suggested during a private meeting. Divorce her before she does something that can't be fixed. Everyone knows she's not fit to be a mother. It's not that simple. Junri rubbed his temples. Her family has connections I need, alliances that keep us stable. If I divorce her now, especially with Choi Sung-ho making moves, it could trigger a war. And if she hurts the boys, she won't get the chance. Junri's voice went cold. I've already moved her to the East Wing. She doesn't have access to the nursery anymore without supervision. But hygiene was smarter than he'd given her credit for. 3 days before the trade summit, Junri came home to find the nursery empty. No babies, no Alicia, just a note in his wife's handwriting. Do you want to choose that foreign whore over your own wife?
Fine. But the boys come with me.
Try to find us, and I'll make sure every family in Seoul knows how weak you've become. Junri's hands shook as he called Min-soo. Find them now. Boss, if we mobilize everyone, Choi Sung-ho will know something's wrong. I don't care. Junri was already grabbing his jacket, his gun. My sons are missing, and Alicia, if hygiene hurts her, We'll find them, Min-soo promised. I swear we'll find them. It took 4 hours. 4 hours of Junri going slowly insane, making calls, threatening people, pulling every favor he had. Finally, Min-soo called back. Found them. Hygiene took them to her family's estate in Busan. But boss, Alicia's hurt. Junri's blood went cold. How hurt? Hygiene pushed her down the stairs when she tried to take the babies back. Possible concussion, definitely bruised ribs. The family doctor says she needs a hospital, but Hygiene won't let anyone near her. Junri was moving before Min-soo finished talking, calling his pilot, assembling his team. The flight to Busan took 45 minutes that felt like 45 years. He went through a dozen scenarios in his head, each one darker than the last. When they arrived at the estate, Hygiene's father was waiting with armed guards. Junri, let's talk about this like reasonable people. Where are my sons? Junri's voice was deadly quiet. Where's Alicia? Your wife has them upstairs, and frankly, she has every right to keep her own children away from the woman trying to steal her husband. Junri moved so fast the old man didn't have time to react. He grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the wall hard enough to rattle teeth. I'm going to say this once, get out of my way, or I'll go through you. Your choice. Something in his face must have convinced them he meant it, because the guards stepped aside. Junri took the stairs 3 at a time, following the sound of babies crying until he found the room. Alicia was on the floor, holding all 3 triplets somehow, blood dried on her temple and her lips split. But she was singing to them, that soft Kenyan lullaby she always used, trying to keep them calm despite her own pain. Junri. Her voice cracked with relief. The boys are okay. I didn't let her take them. I couldn't. I know. He crossed the room, kneeling beside her, his hands gentle as he checked her injuries. I know you protected them. You always protect them. How touching. Hygiene appeared in the doorway, and Junri saw the gun in her hand before she raised it. The mighty Kong Junri, on his knees for the help. Did you really think I would notice? The way you look at her, the way you trust her more than your own wife. Hygiene, put the gun down.
Why?
So you can go back to Seoul and continue your little fairy tale? His wife laughed, the sound sharp and broken. I gave you sons. I almost died giving you heirs, and you replace me with her? Junri moved carefully, positioning himself between Alicia and the gun. This isn't about her. This is about you drinking yourself unconscious every night while our sons suffered. This is about you caring more about society's opinion than your own children's lives. I couldn't help it, Hygiene screamed, and now Junri saw the tears. I couldn't help being sad, being scared. They were so small, so sick, and everyone expected me to know what to do. But I didn't. I didn't know, and you were never there, and I just wanted the fear to stop. So you drank. Junri's voice softened slightly. And when that didn't work, you drank more, and then it was easier to blame everyone else than admit you needed help. The gun wavered. I didn't want to be like this. I wanted to be a good mother. I wanted. Then get help. Junri interrupted gently. Real help from doctors who understand, but you can't take the boys. Not like this. Not when you're a danger to yourself and them. And what about her? Hygiene's gun pointed at Alicia again. She gets to stay. She gets to be everything I couldn't. She gets to live, Junri said flatly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Because if you hurt her, Hygiene, if you hurt the woman who saved our sons when no one else could, there won't be anywhere you can hide from me. Not your family's estate, not your father's connections, nowhere. For a long moment, they all froze. Then Hygiene lowered the gun, her whole body shaking. I hate you. I hate both of you. I know. Junri moved slowly, taking the gun from her unresisting hands. But hating us won't fix what's broken. Only you can do that. Minsu appeared with medical staff, and Junri finally let himself breathe. He turned back to Alicia, who was still holding the triplets, still singing even though her voice was barely a whisper now. Let the doctors check you, he said softly, reaching for Jun Seo. I've got them. I promise I've got them. At the hospital, Junri stayed by Alicia's bedside while the triplets slept in a portable crib the nurses had brought. Concussion, 3 cracked ribs, multiple bruises, but she'd live, the doctors promised. She'd heal. You should have just let her take them, Alicia said hoarsely, her eyes still closed. Should have let her go. It would have been safer for everyone. Stop talking, Junri ordered, but there was no heat in it. You have a concussion, you're supposed to rest. Can't rest. Need to make sure the boys are okay. They're fine. He moved closer, taking her hand carefully. They're fine because you threw yourself downstairs to protect them, because you're apparently insane and selfless, and I don't deserve you. Alicia's eyes finally opened, focusing on him with difficulty. Junri, what happened with Hygiene? She's in a private facility getting treatment for addiction and postpartum depression, he said quietly. Her family agreed it was necessary, and I agreed to keep everything quiet, to not pursue charges for what she did to you. Good, that's good. Alicia's eyes drifted closed again. She needs help, not punishment. She was sick, not evil. You're too forgiving. And you're too hard on people who are suffering. Her hand squeezed his weakly. Promise me you'll make sure she gets proper treatment, that you'll let her see the boys once she's better, if she wants to. Alicia. Promise me, she insisted, her voice getting stronger. They deserve to know their mother, and she deserves a chance to be the person she wanted to be before everything went wrong. So Junri promised, even though part of him wanted to never let Hygiene near his sons again. But Alicia was right. She usually was, and he'd learned to trust her judgment about things like this. 2 days later, Alicia was released from the hospital with strict orders to rest. Junri brought her back to the house, carried her upstairs despite her protests, and settled her in the guest room closest to the nursery. I can walk, you know, she grumbled, but she didn't pull away when he arranged pillows behind her back. Not without wincing every 3 steps. Junri sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle her. You're staying here until you heal, and before you argue, the boys need you healthy, which means you need to actually rest. But the trade summit is tomorrow. You need to prepare. I'm prepared. He wasn't, not really, but that didn't matter right now. Minsu has everything handled, and honestly, I'm not going. Alicia's eyes went wide. What? But Choi Sung-ho will use your absence against you. He'll claim you're weak, that you can't even show up. Let him. Junri stood, moving to look out the window at the garden below. I spent 3 days thinking my sons were in danger, thinking you might die protecting them, and I realized something. I don't care about power, about territory, about any of it, not if it means losing the people who actually matter. Junri, you can't just abandon your organization. I'm not abandoning anything. He turned back to face her. I'm reorganizing priorities. Probably should have done it years ago. My father built an empire through violence and fear, but maybe I can build something different. Something that doesn't require sacrificing everyone I love just to maintain control. Alicia was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, she said, everyone you love? And there it was, the question hanging between them, the truth they'd been dancing around for months. Junri could have deflected, could have pretended she'd misheard. Instead, he sat back down beside her and said, yes, everyone I love. Junri. Her voice was barely a whisper. We can't. You're still married. I'm your employee. Your sons need stability. I know. He reached out, tucking a curl behind her ear with infinite gentleness. I know all the reasons this is impossible, but that doesn't change how I feel. Doesn't change that you're the first person I think about every morning and the last one I want to see every night. Doesn't change that watching you with my sons, makes me believe in things I thought died when I took over this organization. What things? Alicia's eyes were shining with unshed tears. Love, Junri admitted. Family, the kind that's built on choice instead of blood. A future that isn't just about survival and power. You make me want to be someone worthy of the way you see me, probably the most dangerous thing anyone's ever done. A tear escaped, rolling down Alicia's cheek. I'm scared of what this means, of what could happen if people find out. Then we'll be careful. He wiped the tear away with his thumb. We'll wait until the divorce is final, until things settle. I'm not asking you to risk everything right now. I'm just asking, can you wait? Can you give me time to fix this mess, so I can actually deserve you? Alicia was quiet, her hand coming up to cover his where it still rested against her cheek. Finally, she nodded. I'll wait, but Junri, you already deserve happiness. You don't have to earn it by being perfect. Something in his chest cracked open at those words, and Junri found himself leaning forward before he could stop himself. He pressed his forehead to hers, not a kiss, just a moment of shared breath and whispered promises. Thank you, he murmured. For saving my sons, for saving me probably. We saved each other, Alicia whispered back. That's how family works, remember? They stayed like that until Junesio's cry broke the moment. Alicia tried to get up, but Junri gently pushed her back down. I've got him, you rest. And for the first time in his life, Junri walked into his son's room not as a mafia boss or a distant father, but as someone who was finally learning what it meant to actually be present. To choose love over power, family over fear. The trade summit happened without him, and just like Alicia predicted, Choi Sung-ho used his absence to make his move. But what Sung-ho didn't count on was Min-soo being equally prepared, or half the families being tired of the old man's aggressive tactics. They voted against him. Min-soo reported the next morning, looking pleased. Not only did they reject his proposal, but 3 families actually approached me about wanting to work more closely with you, said they respected a man who put family first. Junri looked up from where he was feeding Dae-young, surprised. They respected me for not showing up? They respected you for having priorities beyond power, Min-soo corrected. Turns out a lot of people are tired of the old ways, of leaders who sacrifice everything for control. You accidentally started a revolution by just being a decent father. From the doorway, Alicia laughed softly.
See?
I told you things would work out. She was up and moving now, though still careful with her ribs. The bruises were fading to yellow and green, and her smile was back to full brightness. Junri felt something warm bloom in his chest every time he looked at her. You should be resting, he scolded, but there was no real reproach in it. I'm fine, and besides, I wanted to tell you something. Alicia moved into the room, going to check on Juneseo and Taemin. I got a call from my brother's hospital. Apparently, an anonymous donor paid for his entire treatment, including the transplant and 5 years of follow-up care. Junri kept his face carefully neutral. That's wonderful. Jabari must be so relieved. He is, my whole family is. Alicia turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes that said she knew exactly who that anonymous donor was. They want to fly me home for a visit once he's stable enough, said they miss me. You should go, Junri said immediately, even though the thought of her leaving made his chest tighten. Your family needs to see her, okay? And Jabari probably wants to thank his sister in person for working so hard to save him. What about the boys? The boys will be fine for a week. I've learned enough to manage. He smiled at her. Besides, you deserve time with your family, with people who love you and aren't complicated criminals. Alicia walked over, standing close enough that he could smell her soap and something uniquely her. My family would love you, if they ever met you. My mother especially. She has a soft spot for men who try to be better than they were raised to be. Somehow I doubt she'd approve of a Korean mafia boss dating her daughter. Junri said dryly. Maybe not at first, but she'd come around. Alicia reached out, straightening his collar in a gesture so casual and intimate it made his heart skip. She always said the best men are the ones who know they're broken and try to fix themselves anyway. Their eyes met, and Junri wanted to kiss her so badly, It physically hurt. But the boys were right there, and it wasn't time yet, so he just covered her hand with his and said, "Go home, Alicia, see your family, hold your brother. I'll be here when you get back." She left 3 days later, and the house felt emptier without her. The boys noticed too. Junesio especially kept looking around like he was searching for her, making sad little sounds that broke Junri's heart. "She'll be back," he promised, holding his smallest son close. "She'll always come back to us." But what if she didn't? What if Alicia got to Kenya and realized she didn't want to return to Seoul, to complicated relationships with married men and their sick children? What if her family convinced her to stay, to find a nice Kenyan man who didn't come with criminal baggage? Junri tried not to spiral, but it was hard. Every day without her felt longer than the last, and he found himself checking his phone constantly for messages that rarely came. Alicia was busy with family, which was exactly how it should be. On day 5, Minsu appeared with news that shattered Junri's fragile peace. "Boss, we have a problem. Choi Sung-ho is making another move, but this time it's different. This time he's coming after your family directly." "What do you mean?" "He's been investigating your background, your connections, and he found out about Alicia." Minsu looked grim. "He knows about the money you sent to Kenya, about her brother's treatment. He's planning to use that information to claim you're being manipulated, that you've gone soft because of a woman." "Let him try." Junri's voice was ice. "I don't care what Choi Sung-ho thinks about my relationship with Alicia. It's not just that." Minsu pulled out his phone, showing Junri a series of photos. "He sent people to Kenya. They've been following her, taking pictures. And boss, he's threatening to hurt her family if you don't step down." The world tilted sideways. Junri stared at the photos of Alicia walking with her brother, laughing with her mother, completely unaware she was being hunted. "When?" "He gave us 48 hours, says if you don't announce your retirement by then, he'll make sure her brother has an accident. Says no one will ever prove it was connected to you, but you'll know." That's... Junri couldn't find words dark enough. "That's crossing every line." He's desperate. Minsu's face was hard. "You embarrassed him at the summit, showed everyone there's a different way to lead. He needs to eliminate you before that idea spreads, and he's using the one thing he knows will make you fold." "He's right. If he threatens Alicia's family, I'll..." Junri stopped, his mind racing. "Wait, what if we turn this around? What if we use his desperation against him?" "What do you mean?" "He thinks I'll fold because I love Alicia, because protecting her matters more than power, but what if that's exactly what gives us the advantage?" Junri was already planning, pieces clicking together. "Call everyone, every family head, every ally. Tell them Choi Sung-ho is threatening to murder an innocent child to get to me. Let's see how many people still respect the old ways when they see what those ways actually look like." "Boss, that's brilliant, but it puts Alicia at risk." "No, it doesn't, because I'm bringing her home." Junri was already calling his pilot. "Get security to Kenya, but keep it subtle. I don't want Sung-ho knowing we're onto him. And Minsu, make sure everyone knows that if anything happens to Alicia's family, I'm holding Choi Sung-ho personally responsible." The flight to Kenya was the longest of Junri's life. He spent every second trying not to imagine worst-case scenarios, trying not to think about what Sung-ho might do if he felt cornered. When he landed in Nairobi, Alicia was waiting at her family's small house in Kibera, completely shocked to see him. "Junri, what are you doing here? Is something wrong with the boys?" "The boys are fine." He pulled her aside, away from her curious family. "But we need to talk somewhere private." They ended up in her childhood bedroom, a tiny space barely big enough for a bed and small desk. Junri explained everything: Choi Sung-ho's threats, the photos, his plan to turn the situation around. "So, he wants to hurt Jabari, to hurt my family because of me?" Alicia's voice was hollow. "Because I saved your sons?" "No, because I fell in love with you." Junri took her hands, his grip gentle but firm. "Because Sung-ho knows that threatening you is the only way to make me weak, and he's right. I would give up everything, my organization, my power, my life, if it meant keeping you and your family safe." "You can't do that, the boys need you." "The boys need both of us," Junri interrupted. And I'm done letting men like Choi Sung-ho dictate how I protect the people I love. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to come back to Seoul with me, with security that won't let you out of their sight. Your family is going to get round-the-clock protection, so subtle they won't even notice. And I'm going to end this war before it destroys everyone I care about.
How?
Alicia searched his face. How do you end a war without violence, without becoming exactly what your father was? By showing everyone what's worth fighting for. Junri pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers in that gesture that had become theirs. By proving that love and family aren't weaknesses, they're the only things that make us strong enough to change. Alicia was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled back just enough to look him in the eye. If we do this, if I come back with you and we face this together, things can't go back to how they were. I can't keep being just the nurse, just your employee. I need to know that what we have is real, that you're not just trying to protect me because you feel obligated. Alicia. Junri cupped her face in his hands, his touch reverent. You're the only real thing in my life besides my son's. Everything else is just noise. So yes, what we have is real, maybe the most real thing I've ever felt. Their faces were so close now, and Junri could feel her breath against his lips. It would be so easy to close that distance, to finally kiss her the way he'd been wanting to for months. But her family was in the next room, and the timing wasn't right, and Junri, Alicia whispered, and there was something in her voice that made him go still. When this is over, when Choi Sung-ho isn't a threat anymore and your divorce is final and the boys are safe, I want everything. I want to be your partner, not just your employee. I want family dinners and normal arguments and boring Sundays. I want forever if you're offering. I'm offering, he said immediately, his voice rough. I'm offering everything I have, everything I am, probably not much compared to what you deserve, but it's yours if you want it. I want it. Alicia smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. I want you, messy and complicated and trying so hard to be better than you were. That's enough, you're enough. They stayed like that for another moment, just breathing the same air and making silent promises. Then Alicia's mother called from the other room, and reality crashed back in. Come on, Alicia said, pulling back reluctantly. You need to meet my family properly, and then we need to go save the boys and stop a mafia war. Normal Sunday activities, really. Junri laughed despite everything, and followed her out to meet the people who'd raised someone extraordinary enough to change his entire world. Back in Seoul, Min-soo had been busy. Every major family had received a detailed report about Choi Sung-ho's plans, complete with photos and witness statements. The reaction was unexpected. They're furious, Min-soo reported when Junri and Alicia landed. Not at you, at Sung-ho. 3 families have already withdrawn their support, and 2 more are considering it. Apparently, threatening innocent children crosses a line even for criminals. Good. Junri kept Alicia close as they moved through the airport, his security team forming a protective circle. What's Sung-ho's response? He's denying everything, claims we fabricated the evidence. But no one's buying it, especially not after we leaked the photos to a few key journalists. He's losing allies by the hour. They made it home to find the triplets being watched by a team of nurses, all 3 boys sleeping peacefully. Alicia went straight to check on them, her hands gentle as she verified their breathing and temperatures. They're perfect, she murmured, and Junri saw tears in her eyes. I miss them so much. They missed you too. Jun-seo, especially. Junri stood beside her, watching his son sleep. He kept looking for you, making these sad little sounds every time he realized you weren't there. My poor baby. Alicia carefully lifted Jun-seo, holding him close despite the risk of waking him. The baby stirred but settled immediately against her shoulder, making a contented sound that said home better than words ever could. Alicia, I need to tell you something. Junri waited until she looked at him. I filed for divorce 3 days ago, before I flew to Kenya. Hygiene's lawyers have already agreed to the terms. She gets financial support and supervised visitation once she's out of treatment. I get full custody of the boys. Alicia's eyes went wide. You actually did it. I told you, I was serious. He moved closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. I meant what I said in Kenya. I want forever with you. So I'm clearing away everything that stands between us and that future, one piece at a time. What about Choi Sung-ho? He's the last piece, and I'm handling him tomorrow. Junri's voice went hard. There's a meeting of all the family heads. They want to hear his side, want to give him a chance to defend himself. But we both know he can't defend threatening children, can't justify what he tried to do. What if he doesn't go quietly? Alicia's voice was small. What if he tries something desperate? Then I'll be ready. Junri reached out, running his hand over Junesio's soft hair. Because I have too much to lose now. I'm not taking any chances. The next morning, Junri left early for the meeting, kissing each of his sons goodbye and letting his hand linger on Alicia's shoulder just a moment longer than necessary. Stay inside today. Min-soo has the house locked down, but I don't want to risk. We'll be fine. Alicia covered his hand with hers. Just be careful. And come home, please. Always, he promised and meant it with everything in him. The meeting was in a neutral location, an old restaurant that had been hosting Mafia gatherings for 3 generations. Every major family head was there, their faces carefully neutral as Junri and Choi Sung-ho took positions on opposite sides of the room. Gentlemen, the mediator began, an elderly man named Park who'd been settling disputes since before Junri was born. We're here because serious accusations have been made. Kang Junri claims that Choi Sung-ho threatened innocent civilians to force a power play. Choi Sung-ho denies these claims. We will hear both sides and make a decision. Sung-ho spoke first, his voice smooth and reasonable. This is all a fabrication. Kang has been unstable lately, distracted by his personal life. He's trying to eliminate competition by making me look like a monster. Enough. One of the family heads, an older woman named Lee, who controlled the southern ports, stood up. We've all seen the evidence, Sung-ho. The photos, the witness statements, the money trails. Don't insult our intelligence by pretending this is fabricated. Those could be doctored. By who? By every investigator we sent independently? Another head stood, then another. You threatened a child with cancer, Sung-ho, a child who has nothing to do with our world. That's not strategy, that's not even cruel, it's just pathetic. Junri watched Sung-ho's face go red, watched him realize he was losing. And that's when things went sideways. Sung-ho pulled a gun, pointing it not at Junri but at Park, the mediator. Nobody moves, Sung-ho snarled. You want to condemn me? Fine, but I'm taking someone with me. Junri moved on instinct, tackling Sung-ho before he could fire. They hit the ground hard, the gun skittering away, and for a moment, it was just 2 men fighting for dominance. But Junri was younger, faster, and he had something Sung-ho didn't, something real to fight for. He pinned Sung-ho down, his forearm across the older man's throat. It's over, you're finished. Now you either surrender and take whatever mercy these families offer, or I end this right now. Your choice. Sung-ho struggled, then went limp. You've already won, no need to be dramatic about it. Security moved in, pulling Sung-ho to his feet and escorting him out. The other family heads watched Junri carefully, probably evaluating whether he was going to be a problem leader or a solution. Well, Lee said finally, a small smile on her face. That was interesting, and for the record, Kang, we approve of how you handled this, of your priorities, even of your nurse. Anyone who can make a man like you believe in family deserves our respect. Junri bowed slightly, acknowledging the compliment. Thank you, and just so everyone knows, I'm making some changes to how I run things. Less violence, more diplomacy. If that's a problem for anyone. It's not, another head interrupted. Frankly, we're all tired of the old ways. They attract too much attention, cause too many problems. If you can show us a better path, we're willing to follow. The meeting ended an hour later with new alliances formed and old grudges buried. Junri drove home in a daze, barely able to process that it was actually over. That he'd won without becoming his father, without sacrificing the people he loved. Alicia met him at the door, the triplets in various carriers strapped to her and the nurses. Well, it's over, Junri said simply. Sungho's finished, the families are with me, and I'm officially transitioning the organization toward legitimate businesses. It'll take time, but… He shrugged. I think my father would hate it, which probably means it's the right move. Alicia laughed, the sound bright and beautiful. Come here, there's someone who wants to see you. She led him to the nursery where Junri was awake and alert, his eyes tracking movement in a way they hadn't before. When he saw Junri, the baby smiled, a real, genuine smile that made Junri's throat tight. The new medication is working, Alicia explained softly. His immune system is getting stronger. The doctors think he might actually have a normal life now. Because of you, Junri said, moving to lift his son carefully. Because you refused to give up on him. On any of them. On any of you, Alicia corrected, and when Junri looked at her, he saw everything he'd ever wanted reflected in her eyes. You're all my family now, and I don't give up on family. 3 months later, the divorce was final and Hygiene was out of treatment, looking healthier than Junri had seen her in years. They met at a cafe to discuss visitation arrangements, the conversation awkward but necessary. They're beautiful, Hygiene said, looking at photos of the triplets on Junri's phone. Junri looks so much stronger. I almost didn't recognize him. Alicia's treatments made a huge difference, Junri said carefully. She's been amazing with them. I know. Hygiene's smile was sad but genuine. I saw some of the videos you sent, the way she is with them, the way they respond to her. She's everything I couldn't be. Probably everything I'll never be. That's not true. It is, and that's okay. Hygiene looked up, and there were tears in her eyes, but no anger. I'm not their mother in the way that matters, Junri, not really. But maybe I can be someone who loves them from a distance, who shows up for birthdays and teaches them things their nurse-turned-stepmother might not know. Would that be enough? More than enough, Junri said honestly. And Hygiene? Thank you for getting help, for being honest. The boys deserve to know you tried. They finalized the visitation schedule, supervised visits twice a month, increasing as Hygiene proved she could stay sober. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, and that was more than Junri had hoped for. When he got home, Alicia was in the garden with the triplets, all 3 boys on a blanket surrounded by toys they were too young to really play with. But Junri was reaching for a rattle, Daeyoung was babbling at the sky, and Taemin was just content, which was more than enough. How did it go? Alicia asked, shading her eyes to look up at him. Good, surprisingly good. Junri sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. She's actually trying to be better. I think the treatment helped more than we knew. I'm glad. Alicia leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. Everyone deserves a chance to heal, even people who hurt us. They sat like that for a while, just watching the boys and breathing the same air. Finally, Junri pulled out the small box he'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Alicia, I know we said we'd wait, that we'd take things slow. But I've been thinking, life's too short and too unpredictable to waste time pretending we're not sure about this. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring with a single stone. So, I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? Alicia stared at the ring, tears streaming down her face. You're really sure about this? About me, about forever? I've never been more sure of anything, Junri said simply. You saved my sons, you saved me, you made me believe in things I thought were just fairy tales. So yes, I'm sure. The question is, are you? Yes, Alicia whispered, then louder. Yes, of course yes, you impossible man. I've been yours since the night you caught me singing to Junri, probably even before that. Junri slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, just like she fit perfectly into his life, into his family, into his heart. They didn't kiss, not with the boys right there watching with curious eyes, but they held each other close and made promises with their eyes that words could never capture. The wedding was small, just family and a few close friends. Alicia's entire family flew in from Kenya, and watching her mother dance with Junri's sons was a moment he'd treasure forever. Hygiene even sent a gift, a set of traditional Korean blankets with a note that said simply, "Thank you for being what they needed." "You know," Alicia said during their first dance, moving carefully since she still wasn't used to heels, "when I took that maid job, I thought I'd work for a year, send money home, and then disappear. I never imagined any of this." "I never imagined you either," Junri admitted. "Never imagined someone could make me want to be better, to build something real instead of just maintaining what my father left. But here we are, and I wouldn't change a single moment, even the terrible ones. Not even Hygiene pushing me down the stairs? Especially not that, because it made me realize I couldn't lose you, that I'd burn the whole world down before I let anyone hurt you again." He pulled her closer, swaying to music he wasn't really hearing. "You're my whole world now, Alicia. You and those 3 boys who refused to sleep through the night." Alicia laughed, the sound bright and perfect. "Speaking of the boys, we should probably check on them. Junri was looking fussy earlier." "They're fine," Junri interrupted, gesturing to where Minsu was holding all 3 babies somehow, looking both terrified and delighted. "Let him suffer for a few minutes. He needs practice before his wife has their baby next month." "You're terrible. You married me anyway." "I did. And I'd do it again, probably 1,000 times. Alicia's eyes were shining. "Thank you, Junri, for giving me a family when mine was so far away. For trusting me with your sons when you barely knew me. For being brave enough to change when changing seemed impossible." "Thank you," Junri countered. "For seeing past the Mafia boss to the man underneath. For teaching me that love doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong enough to survive anything. For being my partner, my friend, my home." They danced until Junri started crying, then spent the rest of their wedding reception taking turns calming Triplets and accepting congratulations from guests who couldn't quite believe this unlikely story. A Korean Mafia boss and a Kenyan doctor, brought together by 3 sick babies and circumstances that should have kept them apart forever. 2 years later, the house was chaos in the best way. The Triplets were walking now, Junri with a slight limp that doctors said would fade, Dae-young fearlessly, Taemin carefully, like he was always thinking 3 steps ahead. They'd added a 4th baby to the mix, a daughter named Ayana after Alicia's grandmother, and the girl was already showing signs of having her mother's stubbornness. "Junri, don't put that in your mouth," Alicia called from the kitchen where she was attempting to make dinner while Ayana napped in a carrier on her chest. "Dae-young, help your brother." "Taemin, stop trying to climb the bookshelf. You'll hurt yourself." "I've got them," Junri said, scooping up Junri before the boy could eat whatever he'd found on the floor. "Come on, warriors. Let's give your mother 5 minutes of peace." "Good luck with that," Alicia called back, but she was smiling. Later, after the kids were finally asleep and the house was quiet, they collapsed on the couch together like they did every night. Junri pulled Alicia close, breathing in her familiar scent and feeling more content than he'd ever imagined possible. "I've been thinking," Alicia said quietly, "about opening a clinic, something small for families who can't afford proper pediatric care. Your organization's going legitimate anyway, so maybe we could fund it." "Yes," Junri interrupted. "Whatever you need, whatever it costs, yes. You want to save more kids like you saved ours? I'll make it happen." "Just like that? Just like that." He kissed her temple, the gesture automatic now. "You taught me what's worth fighting for, Alicia, and it's not money or power or territory. It's moments like this, kids sleeping safely in the next room, building something that actually matters. So yes, let's open a clinic, let's save as many kids as we can." Alicia turned to look at him, her eyes soft. "I love you. In case I don't say it enough between the chaos and the diapers and everything else." "I love you too," Junri said, and meant it with everything in him. "More than I thought possible, probably more than I'll ever find words for." They sat like that until Ayana started fussing, then moved together to handle the next crisis and the one after that. Because this was their life now, messy and loud and absolutely perfect. A former mafia boss and the woman who taught him love was worth more than power, raising 4 kids who would hopefully never know the darkness their father came from. And every night, Junri watched the hidden cameras he'd never removed from the triplets' room, watching Alicia sing those old Kenyan lullabies and check temperatures and tuck blankets with the same devotion she'd shown that first night. The night he'd realized love wasn't a weakness, but the only thing strong enough to change everything. The night his whole world had shifted, all because of one incredible woman who refused to let his son suffer when she could help. The night he'd started believing in love and having faith in humanity again. And he'd believe it for the rest of his life, through every challenge and triumph, through every moment that mattered. Because Alicia had shown him what real strength looked like, not violence or fear, but love that chose to stay even when leaving would be easier. Love that healed instead of hurt, that built instead of destroyed. That was the legacy he wanted to leave his children. The lesson he'd learned too late, but held onto fiercely now. That love was always worth fighting for, always worth choosing, always worth believing in, even when the whole world said otherwise. Especially then. Underscore 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 underscore. So there you have it. Our story of how a mafia boss found redemption through hidden cameras and the amazing woman who changed everything. If you love this journey, drop a comment and let me know what you think. Maybe share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. And hey, if you want more stories about unexpected love and people finding their way back to humanity, stick around because there's always another tale to tell. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect.